thelandofisrael.com, and Israel National TV present Ari Abramowitz and Jeremy Gimpel. Live from the heart of Israel, it's Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem.
Thank you all for joining us again with Tuesday Night Live in Jerusalem. Tonight we have a very special treat. He's the director of Israel National Radio, a spokesman for the Jewish people. His name is Yishai Fleisher, and he's here with us tonight.
He actually had his wedding in Hebron at Ma'arat Machpelah, one of the most beautiful weddings I've ever been to.
You know, there was a lot of Hebron action happening about a month ago, and the Jewish people were kicked out of their home, Beit HaShalom, and everybody was talking about it, and the news media wanted somebody to speak up about Hebron. They wanted to pigeonhole somebody to make him look like a crazy settler, so they picked me.
Why?
I think it's a facial thing. So AlJazeera called me. Did anybody see my AlJazeera interview?
Woo!
All right.
Well, joining us now are our guests in Jerusalem, Rabbi Yishai Fleisher. He's a radio host at Israeli National Radio and co-founder of Kuma, an organization that promotes Jewish immigration to Israel.
What's wrong with Jews living in Hebron? Why is that illegal? He just said that it's illegal by international law for Jews to live in Hebron. That's crazy. Why would it be illegal for people to live somewhere? The question is, why are the Jews there in the first place? And if anybody had a historical perspective around here, then they would understand what's going on here. The Jewish people have been yearning to return to their ancient homeland for a long time. And our tiny little strip of land in the Middle East here is under... Excuse me. I'm answering the question because it comes out of that. It comes out of that. When you have 23 Muslim countries all around and a tiny little Jewish country that's under constant attack, then people react when they're being pushed out of their natural heritage and their authentic home right. Peace comes from the word shalom, as in Hebrew peace comes from the word shalem, which means whole. You can only have peace if somebody's not stealing from you.
One quick
we have to
final
come
word
to an
with
equitable
you.
agreement. AlJazeera called me and well, I went. You know, everybody told me, you're crazy, don't go to AlJazeera. And I went to AlJazeera. They have their studios in the Malcha Mall in Jerusalem, at the technology park. And it's not actually their studios. It's an Israeli studio company that rents out their studios to AlJazeera. And the guy that was filming me and making sure that I was doing my interview right was an Israeli guy with an earring and a ponytail. And he was working for AlJazeera. Maybe he had sold his soul, you know? And I got on AlJazeera, and they asked me questions about Hebron, and I was just excited and wild and flailing my arms, and I wasn't just the calm spokesman of it, you know, the Israel spokesman that you always expect. Well, yeah, the territories are occupied maybe, or I don't know what. I said, no, this is our land. I said, I will never give up this land. As long as there's Jewish blood and Jewish veins, we will never give up Hebron. And do you know why that is? And do you know why that is? Because my daddy's buried there. Because our forefathers, our matriarchs, our patriarchs, they're buried in Hebron. And that's why we will never give it up. And that was basically my message. And I thought to myself, well, AlJazeera is just going to cut that tape and make me look like an idiot. Maybe they'll just put a still picture of me and they'll be like, well, you're on occupied land. What do you say about that? And I'd be...
A dub over, maybe.
You know, yeah, maybe a dove or something like that, okay? And I thought that they'd just cut my video and make me look like an idiot. And I said, well, what are you going to do? You know, you got to shlach lachmecha, do your best. You know, send your bread upon the waters. And then the camera guy, after I finished, the camera guy looked at me and he said, Zaya tov, Zaya chazak.
It was good. It was strong.
He said, that was good. You were strong. And I thought to myself, if just this one Jew, if I got just this one Jew, if I changed his life, if maybe he went home and thought to himself, maybe I should say Shema Yisrael, maybe I should leave peace now, maybe I should be a good Jew, if that one moment worked, then it was all worth it. And that was the message that I learned this past Hanukkah. Light that candle. One more candle, hit another Jew, turn on another, don't hit him, love him, hug him, pat him on the back, love another Jew, and you know what, at the end, all the candles are lit, and all the Jewish people and all the whole world is going to be ignited to God.
We have a good man joining us tonight. We have a man that's positioned himself in the pages of Jewish history, helping facilitate Aliyah, speaking on behalf of the Jewish people to the superpower of the world. He was the Israeli ambassador to the United States, and he's the co-chairman of Nefesh B'Nefesh. We have with us tonight Ambassador Donnie Alon. You can do this? All right.
I need a hug too.
Great show you have.
Ambassador Ayalon, you've really positioned yourself, as Jeremy mentioned, as a historic figure. You've helped ingather the exiles. That's a pretty auspicious task. By the way, I need to say that my parents are here from Houston, Texas, and they've announced that they're making Aliyah.
Proud of you.
You've spoken on behalf of the Jewish people, on behalf of Israel, to America, which really is the superpower of the world. What do you think is the most important task facing the Jewish people today?
We have special responsibility, not just to ourselves and to our children and to our children's children, but for entire humanity. Tikkun olam. And today, this world is of great danger. And we are the ones to point it out, whether it's because of military force against us in Iran or in Gaza or in Lebanon or wherever, whether it's anti-Semitism in Moscow or London or Warsaw or anywhere else. We have to point out, we have to flush it out. We should not be bashful, and we have to be outspoken.
Well, it's... You know, lately you've gotten a lot of coverage in the Jerusalem Post. You've written a couple of articles, people have written articles about you, and the truth is, when I first read these articles, I got a little excited. And I'm just going to quote one of the things that you wrote in your article. Having tried the conventional wisdom of land for peace, having tried military might and economic sanctions and failed public relations programs, it's time to think outside of the box. Let's be courageous and examine these issues and ideas from every angle. You then said, Israel's too politically correct. You're tired of being politically correct. What does that mean?
Well, it means that we have not just to identify the problem and to speak about it in back rooms or speak about it euphemistically or diplomatically. We have to put the issue and speak about it loud and clear. In 1938, there was no room for political correctness. We are now almost in the same world situation. So what I mean is, when the world is coming to us and say, well, you are, quote unquote, the stronger power, you should give the Palestinians a state, you should do this, you should do that, we should tell them, no. Look at what is happening.
Well, I'll tell you, Ambassador Ayalon, can I call you Donnie just between
Please,
you,
please,
Ari, the
Danny.
crowd, and the
Yes,
cameras?
absolutely.
All right. So, Donnie, the truth is, that's beautiful, but the truth is, it still sounds pretty politically correct. Because when we read these articles, there were rumors going around Jerusalem. And when I mean rumors, Ari and I were talking about it. And what we were saying is that perhaps someone is actually going to get up and say the truth, that the war in the Middle East has nothing to do with the 67 borders. It has nothing to do with politics or diplomacy. It's a religious, spiritual war. The Muslims are a religious people. They pray 5 times a day. And it's time, as diplomats, we need to speak to them on their level and say that the God of Abraham loves the Jewish people. And he's brought us home to the land of Israel, just as the Bible tells that he will. We need to tell the Christian world who believes in the Bible and say, our deed to the land of Israel is in this book that you believe in. It's our homeland. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. There is, great. There is a misconception, and I see it everywhere. Now, partly it's naive, partly it's very cynical and self-serving to press Israel, and that is that all the problems in the Middle East stem from the existence of Israel. You know, there are some in Europe who say right now, we shouldn't have voted for you in 1948, you know, at the United Nations. Now, they ignore all the facts, because if I look back 60 years of Israeli existence, right? Or, you know, Israel as it was reborn. It's always very important to tell everybody that Israel was not born in 1948. It was reborn as a sovereign country in 1948. This is something that everybody has to understand, and you have to drive the point home. Not everybody understands it. But if you look just for the last 60 years, okay, in the Middle East, Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 88, more than 1 million casualties had nothing to do with Israel or the Palestinian conflict. Kuwait being engulfed and devoured by Saddam Hussein in 1990, August 1990, had nothing to do with Israel. Lebanon being actually invaded by Syria in 1976 had nothing to do with Israel. 1970, I don't know how many of you remember, Syria was going to invade into Jordan. Only because of Israel, they didn't take over Jordan. Even in the 1960s, they were fighting all over the Arab world. The Kurds and the Iraqis and the Yemens and the Egypt in Yemen. So all these problems have nothing to do with Israel. So when you tell them, they don't have an answer to it, but people try to ignore it. Now, if you look at it today, the real problem in the Middle East is, as you say, a religious war. The extremist Islamists, they start in Tehran, but they go all over the place. And not only they want to take the entire Middle East, but also the entire world. They want to renew the caliphate, take over Spain and Europe, and then the United States. By the way, most of Americans understand it. They understand that we fight here, not just for ourselves, but for them. And to anyone who say, just solve the Palestinian problem and everything will be okay, we say no, just solve the Iranian problem. Maybe then everything could be okay, or we could embark on the way for peace.
Thank you. We have now just another minute or two. If you had one message you would like to share with the crowd tonight, all the viewers around the world, what would the message be of the former U.S. ambassador, Israeli U.S. ambassador?
Very simply put, you speak Hebrew. I saw it. Your Hebrew was very great.
Thank you.
Am Israel Chai. Am Israel Chai. And I can tell you, it's a great privilege. It's a great responsibility as well, but it's a great privilege and pride to represent Israel, whether it's in Washington or anywhere else, because you represent not just 7 million Israelis, not just 13.5 million Jews. You represent
God.
No, well, I wish I was a rabbi, maybe in my next life, but you represent hundreds of generations of Jews. You represent King David, and you represent, Mordechai, who was a great ambassador for the Jewish people in Persia. You represent Moses, who was a great ambassador for the Jewish people in Egypt. But,
Donnie, I want you to know, I love you. I love this whole talk we're having. Whether you like it or not, you represent God.
Good. You know what? If you say so, I will take it gladly. I mean, I wouldn't want to be presumptuous to say it, but if you think that way, I will not defy you. I will take it lovely. That's great. That's great. That's great.
All right. Thank you so much for being with us, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
A real pleasure.
Great seeing you all. Thank you.
Let's face it, no matter what we do, we are always going to be in the world's spotlight. So let's stop trying to get out of it. It's our lot. And as long as the eyes of the world are on Israel, are on the Jewish people, let's inspire them. Let's take this opportunity because they need it now more than ever. Most Jews in Israel are not so observant and they don't have such a great Jewish education, but they are religious. They believe in God. They believe in the Torah. They believe that God gave us the land of Israel. So let's stand up as a nation, step onto the center stage of world history, and teach, not always defend ourselves all the time, but teach Torah, teach truth, teach that the God up in heaven and this reality in the world below is all one. When we fill our task, when we do our role, then and only then will we get that positive press coverage we've always wanted. Shalom from Jerusalem.
מספרים כבודיך, השמיים מספרים כבודיך, עם האדמה והמים עולים עד אליך, עם האדמה והמים עולים עד אליך. כולה השמיים מספרים, מספרים כבודך, השמיים מספרים, מספרים כבודך, עם האדמה והמים עולים עד אליך, עם האדמה והמים עולים עד אליך. עם האדמה והמים כל הילדים החביבים צועקים לשמיים, האדמה והמים מספרים לי עליך, עם האדמה והמים מגלים לי אהבתך.